Get out of my house now, you are no longer my child." His voice was like a blade, sharp, cold, and without hesitation. I stood frozen in the grand foyer, my fingers clutching the straps of my bag so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Behind him, the woman with that cruel, victorious smile crossed her arms, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "My name is Savannah Carter, and today, at 19 years old, I was officially thrown out of the house where I grew up, the home that once belonged to my family, until my mother died, and she appeared. 3 years ago, I was still the little girl my father held in his arms whenever I was tired, the daughter he led through the hallways of our family business, promising that one day, I would carry on my mother's legacy. But now, that same man stood before me, his eyes filled with a coldness I had never seen before. "Dad, please don't do this. This is my home." I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked under the weight of reality. Sarah narrowed her eyes, tilting her head in mock sympathy. "Savannah, you've been so disrespectful for so long, you refuse to move on. How do you expect to grow if you're stuck living in the past?" My father turned to her and nodded, as if agreeing with all the lies. "Mom's only been gone for 3 years, and you've already forgotten her?" My voice trembled. "Do you really think she would want to see me thrown out of my own home?" "Don't bring your mother into this," he roared, like a cornered animal. "That's over. You need to accept reality." Reality? My reality was that after my mother died of cancer, my father drowned in his grief and became someone I no longer recognized. My reality was that he married Sarah less than 8 months after Mom passed, as if she had never existed. And the most painful reality of all was that I never thought the day would come when my own father would throw me away for another woman. Sarah sighed, feigning exasperation. "James, I think we should change the locks as soon as she's gone. Who knows what she might do if she tries to come back? And the company? We should reevaluate her ownership in the family business. She hasn't contributed anything, so why does she even have shares?" I froze. "Dad, you already changed the locks, didn't you?" He wouldn't look at me, he just nodded. Something inside me sank, like being pulled into a bottomless pit. I turned away, my eyes sweeping over the house I grew up in, now nothing more than a shell of what it used to be. The family photos that once lined the walls had been replaced with cold, abstract paintings that Sarah liked. The curtains my mother had carefully chosen were gone, replaced with modern designs. Even her familiar scent had been erased. Finally I nodded. "All right. If that's what you've chosen, I'll go. But remember, you are the one pushing me out of your life. And one day, you'll regret it." Sarah scoffed. "Don't flatter yourself, Savannah. Life will go on just fine without you." I didn't respond. The tears burned at the back of my throat, but I refused to let them see me break. I turned on my heel and walked up the stairs, my footsteps echoing against the hardwood floor. I had exactly 1 hour to pack. 1 hour to gather everything I had left in this world. My bedroom was the only thing untouched in this unfamiliar house, but I knew it wouldn't be for long. Soon, it would probably be turned into a home gym, or maybe a personal spa for Sarah. I opened my closet, pulling out an old suitcase and stuffing in the essentials, my laptop, clothes, important documents. I rummaged through my desk, finding the small box where I kept my mother's jewelry, the only thing she left me before she passed. A message popped up on my phone screen. "How's it going? Need me to come get you?" Marcus. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my hands from shaking as I typed back. "It's real. I'm being kicked out. Can I crash at your place for a few days?" "Are you kidding? I already told Mom to get a room ready for you. Get out of there. Don't let those bastards see you cry." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. At least someone hadn't turned their back on me. When I dragged my suitcase down the stairs, Sarah didn't bother hiding her smug grin. My father said nothing. No goodbye. Not even a final glance. I opened the door, stepped out of the house that was once mine, and never looked back. The rain began to fall. a new chapter in my life had begun, and I would write it my way. Marcus was already waiting when I stepped out into the cold rain, my suitcase dragging across the damp concrete. His old car was parked by the curb, engine still running. I tossed my suitcase into the trunk and slid into the passenger seat, the blast of cold air from the AC hitting my face, but it still couldn't chill me as much as the bitterness swelling in my chest. Marcus glanced at me, his face full of concern. "Do we need to go back and break a few windows?" he asked, half joking, half serious. I let out a laugh, dry and humorless. "No. I don't want to waste another second on them," I muttered, staring into the darkness ahead. Marcus didn't say anything else. He just nodded, pressed the gas, and drove me away from the place that had once been my home. Marcus's house was much smaller than the mansion I had lived in, but it had something I hadn't felt in a long time. Warmth. Ellen, Marcus's mother, was the first to wrap me in a tight hug as soon as I stepped inside. "Oh, you poor girl. Stay as long as you need, this house will always have a place for you." Just hearing those words nearly broke me. But I couldn't afford to be weak, couldn't allow myself to drown in grief. I had lost everything, but I wouldn't let them decide my future. I had to start over. The next morning I sat at Marcus's kitchen table, a cup of cold coffee in front of me, dark circles under my eyes from a sleepless night. Marcus sat across from me, tapping his fingers against the table. "So, what's the plan?" I took a deep breath. "I need a job, I can't live off your mom forever. There's a place hiring baristas, I know the owner, I can put in a word." I nodded. "Good. I'll take it. But I'm not planning to make coffee forever. I have an idea." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Listen, Marcus. I know Pierce Technologies' security system is outdated. They only focus on big corporations and ignore the small business market. But small businesses need protection too, and no one is offering them a solution." I opened my laptop and scrolled to a document I had written months ago. A business plan I had once hoped to present to my father. "I'm going to build a cybersecurity system tailored for small businesses. Simple, user-friendly, but still secure, and, most importantly, affordable." Marcus straightened up, his expression shifting. "You really think you can pull this off on your own?" I gave a faint smirk. I have nothing left to lose. The days that followed were exhausting. During the day, I worked at Mr. Harris's coffee shop, learning how to make espresso and wiping down tables while customers complained about drink prices. At night, I sat in Marcus's garage, typing away, writing lines of code to build my software. Ellen constantly brought up food, reminding me to sleep, but I only gave her a grateful smile. I couldn't stop. I wouldn't let them. My father, Sarah, all those who had looked down on me. Win. After 3 months, I finally completed the first version of my security software, Phoenix Security Solutions. The name was intentional. Phoenix, the symbol of rising from the ashes. And just like the phoenix, I was rebuilding myself, from the ruins of my past. Now, I just needed my first client. One Monday morning, after finishing my shift, I noticed Mr. Harris struggling with a strange email on the shop's register computer. "What's this?" I asked, stepping closer. "Someone's trying to steal my customer data. I don't know what to do," he frowned. I glanced at the screen, immediately recognizing the signs of a simple but dangerous cyber attack. "I can fix it," I said without hesitation. "Really?" I nodded, quickly typing a few commands. Within 10 minutes, his system was secured from potential threats. "You don't have to worry anymore, I just installed a new security program for your system." Mr. Harris looked at me, his expression a mix of surprise and admiration. "You made this software?" I smiled. "I developed it myself, it's designed for businesses like yours. Small, but still in need of protection." Mr. Harris nodded. "So, what if I want to buy it?" I blinked. "Really?" He chuckled. "You helped me, so why shouldn't I help you? Go ahead and install it. And send me the invoice." And just like that, Phoenix Security Solutions had its first customer. Watching Mr. Harris sign the contract, I felt something swell in my chest. Determination. This was just the beginning. I wouldn't stop until they realized they had underestimated me. A year passed in a whirlwind. Phoenix Security Solutions was no longer just an idea in Marcus's garage. What started as a simple security software had evolved into a full-fledged system, integrating AI technology to detect and prevent cyber attacks in real time. Small shops began to trust my product. Then came mid-sized businesses, private firms, and even a few larger companies. Before I knew it, the company had secured 50 steady clients and was turning a profit. I wasn't one for flashy events, but as a CEO growing a business, I had no choice. Marcus dragged me to a tech conference downtown, where hundreds of entrepreneurs gathered to network and sign deals. "Think of it as an opportunity to meet investors," he said with a smirk. "And who knows? You might even see some familiar faces." I didn't pay much attention to his words. Until I saw my father. James Carter stepped into the Grand Hotel lobby, Sarah on his arm like a queen taking the stage. He still looked the same. Expensive suit, perfectly polished social smile. But something was different. His eyes seemed weary, his steps slower, lacking the confidence of a man who once held absolute power. I stood still, not out of fear, but because of the cold numbness spreading through me. He saw me. And as if I didn't exist, he turned away. I smirked. A year ago that would have hurt me. But now? Now, all I felt was contempt. Sarah, of course, couldn't resist. As she passed by, she tilted her head, her smirk dripping with mockery. "Oh, Savannah, I heard you're in business now? How's old Mr. Harris's coffee shop doing?" I didn't respond. I only met her gaze, sharp and unwavering. Marcus, who had been silent until now, suddenly laughed. "She's not at the coffee shop anymore. Phoenix Security Solutions is growing so fast we're considering expanding to multiple states." For the briefest moment, Sarah's smirk faltered. But she quickly recovered, her expression turning indifferent. "Good luck, but don't expect to get very far. This world isn't for amateurs." I crossed my arms and tilted my head. "Thanks, but I don't need your validation. I make my own way." Sarah opened her mouth to say something, but James pulled her away before she could continue. I watched them go, a strange feeling settling inside me. He hadn't said a single word. That was fine. I didn't need him anymore. A week after the event, I was sitting in my makeshift office. A shared workspace, not quite a headquarters, but definitely an upgrade from Marcus's garage. Marcus walked in, a newspaper in hand, and tossed it onto my desk. "Take a look at this." I glanced down. Business section. "Personally favored, financial troubles, losing market pair." I raised an eyebrow. "Looks like they're not doing so well." Marcus folded his arms and clicked his tongue. "The reason is simple. Their product is outdated. While newer companies like Phoenix are developing more advanced solutions, they're still clinging to an old model." I smirked. My father's arrogance had led him to this. But then, a notification popped up on my laptop screen. Sender, Linda Harper, longtime assistant at Pierce Technologies. Someone who had known me since I was a child. "Savannah, I know I shouldn't be reaching out, but I thought you should hear this. Pierce Technologies is considering selling its cybersecurity division. They can't compete in this market anymore. If you're interested, this could be an opportunity." I read the message 3 times, my chest tightening with an indescribable emotion. My father, the man who had dismissed me, the man who rejected my ideas 3 years ago, was now selling off the very business I had found the most success in. I sat in silence for a moment before slowly leaning back in my chair, a cold smile spreading across my lips. "Marcus, we need to talk." He glanced up from his screen. "What's up?" I turned my laptop toward him, letting him read Linda's message. "Phoenix is growing fast, but if we really want to expand, why not swallow Pierce Technologies whole?" Marcus blinked, then let out a delighted laugh. "You want to buy your father's company?" I shrugged. "Just a part of it. But who knows? Maybe one day, all of it." I reached for my coffee, took a slow sip, feeling the rush of excitement. This wasn't just about proving myself anymore. This was about flipping the entire game. 3 years. 3 years since I walked out of that cold, lifeless mansion under the pouring rain. 3 years since I dragged my suitcase into Marcus's home, starting over with nothing but my determination. And now, Phoenix Security Solutions was no longer an unknown name. We had expanded into 4 states, with over 2,000 businesses using our services. We were on the path to becoming a major force in cybersecurity. The company was now valued at over $75 million. And most importantly, we had become a direct competitor to Pierce Technologies. I stepped into the grand ballroom of the Grand Sterling Hotel, where this year's Tech Innovation Awards were being held. The dazzling chandeliers reflected off the polished marble floors, and the chatter of industry leaders filled the room. I had attended countless tech conferences before, but this was the most significant one yet. Tonight, I was nominated for the Technology Breakthrough Award, an honor reserved for industry pioneers. Marcus stood beside me, dressed in a tailored gray suit, swirling a glass of red wine. He clicked his tongue in amusement. "See anyone familiar?" I knew exactly who he meant, but I didn't need to look. Because my father was sitting in the VIP section, near the stage. James Carter. The man who once abandoned me. Sarah was no longer by his side. I had heard they had separated over a year ago. He looked older than he had 3 years ago. His hair had more gray, his eyes lacked the unshakable confidence they once held. And most noticeably, he was no longer seated at the center of attention. Pierce Technologies had weakened, lost its market share, and faded into the background of the tech world. All because they had underestimated me. And now, the winner of this year's Technology Breakthrough Award goes. The room fell silent, hundreds of eyes locked onto the stage. I held my breath. Phoenix Security Solutions, CEO, Savannah Carter. The sound of thunderous applause filled the room. I stepped onto the stage, the spotlight shining down, illuminating the sapphire necklace I wore, the only piece of my mother's jewelry that I still kept. I took the trophy in my hands and drew in a deep breath. As I glanced down at the audience, my eyes met James Carter's, and he drew in a deep breath. As I glanced down at the audience, my eyes met James Carter's. James Carter. And for a brief moment, I saw something in his gaze that had never been there 3 years ago. Regret. 3 years ago, I had everything. A family, a future laid out for me, a path without struggle. But then, I lost it all. And in that moment of abandonment, I realized, sometimes, being pushed off the edge is the only way to learn how to fly. Another round of applause erupted. I didn't look at my father again. I had already won. After the ceremony, the ballroom buzzed with conversations, handshakes, and congratulations. I was standing with Marcus, speaking with a few investors, when a familiar voice called out behind me. "Savannah." I turned around. James Carter stood there. No longer the arrogant man from 3 years ago. Just a middle-aged man, quietly facing the daughter he had cast out of his life. "Congratulations," he said, his voice lower, slower than I remembered. I didn't respond immediately. "Thank you." My tone remained neutral. James took a deep breath, as if summoning all his courage to say the next words. "I'd like to see you, to talk." Marcus tightened his grip on his wine glass, glancing at me with a questioning look. I could feel my heart beating faster. 3 years. 3 years of silence. And now, when I had already made it on my own, now he wanted to talk? I lifted my head, meeting his gaze directly. "Way now?" James swallowed hard, looking down for a moment before meeting my eyes again. "Because I was wrong, and I don't want to lose you forever." I let out a quiet laugh, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm not sure I'm the daughter you remember anymore." James closed his eyes for a brief second, then opened them with an honesty I had never seen before. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just ask for one meal to explain." I was silent for a moment. Marcus lightly touched my hand, a reminder that I didn't have to decide right now. But I already knew my answer. I have a meeting on Monday. If you want to talk, my assistant will schedule it. I gave him one last glance before turning away. This time, I was the one leaving him behind. I thought long and hard before agreeing to meet him. The meeting was set at Marcello's, a small Italian restaurant tucked into the corner of the city, one of my mother's old favorites. I remembered the evenings when I was little, sitting at this very place, watching my mother order her favorite pasta, while my father laughed, his face beaming with pride as he watched me play with my garlic bread. But that was a memory of a family that no longer existed. Today, I wasn't returning as a daughter wrapped in the warmth of her parents' love. I was returning as a successful woman, meeting the man who had once cast her out. When I stepped inside, James Carter was already seated in the corner, dressed in a neatly pressed black suit. Yet something about him looked worn, as if the weight of the past 3 years had left visible marks on him. I pulled out a chair and sat across from him, saying nothing at first. He studied me for a long moment before exhaling slowly. "Thank you for coming." I simply nodded, lifting my glass of water but not drinking from it. He hesitated, as if trying to find the right words. Finally, he set his knife and fork down, lacing his fingers together, eyes fixed on the wooden table. "I've separated from Sarah." I wasn't surprised. I had heard about it before. But I wanted to hear it from him. "The reason?" I asked, my tone neutral. James swallowed hard, then spoke slowly. "She betrayed me." I let out a small laugh. "Really? And you just found out now?" His lips pressed into a thin line, but he didn't get angry like he used to. There was only exhaustion. I had my suspicions for a while, but I didn't want to face it. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "So why did you finally decide to separate?" James sighed, as if he no longer had the strength to hide the truth. "Sarah didn't just betray me in our marriage, she manipulated the entire company. She had been involved with one of Pierce Technologies' major shareholders for over a year. Together they pushed me aside, making reckless decisions that drove the company downhill." I raised an eyebrow. "So you finally realized you were being used?" He nodded slowly. "I was wrong. I was wrong from the very moment I threw you out. I'm sorry." I didn't respond right away. The waiter arrived, placing our food in front of us. I had ordered truffle mushroom pasta, my mother's favorite dish. My father glanced at it, and I saw his lips tremble slightly. Maybe he missed her too. "I have no excuse for what I did," he said, his voice hoarse. "Throwing you out was the worst decision of my life." I set my fork down, my gaze cold and unwavering. "Why did you do it? Why did you choose her over me?" James closed his eyes for a second before opening them again, filled with regret. "Because I was a coward." His answer made me pause. "Losing your mother was the hardest thing I ever went through," he continued. "I didn't know how to deal with that kind of pain. And Sarah? She came, at the right moment, with comforting words, with a false sense of understanding. I convinced myself that if I changed everything, our home, the company, even you, then maybe I could forget the loss." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "But you didn't forget, did you?" James shook his head. "No, and by the time I realized it, there was no going back." I took a deep breath. "So, what do you want now?" He looked up at me, sadness in his eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want a chance to make things right." I let out a laugh, but it was bitter. "A chance? I gave you that chance 3 years ago, when I stood in the foyer of my own home, begging you not to throw me out. But you made your choice, and now, when Pierce Technologies is falling apart, when Sarah has cast you aside, now you want to come back?" James remained silent, the pain clear in his expression. "It's not about the company, not about Pierce Technologies," he said quietly. "I just want my daughter back." I wasn't sure what I felt in that moment, anger, sadness, or just emptiness. I looked at him for a long time. A father I had once idolized, a man who had pushed me out of his life for a woman he thought mattered more. And now, here he was, searching for a way back. I lowered my gaze, picked up my glass and took a slow sip of water, letting the coolness calm the storm inside me. Then, I set the glass down and met his eyes. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'll think about it. For the first time that evening, I saw James Carter smile. Just a little, though it was still tinged with sadness. That's all I could hope for. I thought our meeting would end there, a belated apology, an effort to mend something far too broken to fix. But I was wrong. James Carter didn't just want to make amends, he wanted more. We remained at the table, our meals long gone cold. James slowly pulled out an envelope, placed it on the table, and slid it toward me. I raised an eyebrow but didn't reach for it. What is this? James rested both hands on the table, taking a deep breath before speaking. It's my offer. I looked at him, skeptical. What kind of offer? James hesitated for a moment, then said it outright. I want you to become the CEO of Pierce Technologies. I froze. The chatter from the other tables at Marcello's continued, the elegant atmosphere unchanged, but in my mind everything had gone completely silent. I let out a soft laugh, filled with doubt. For what? To save the company you let Sarah destroy? James nodded. Pierce Technologies is in a dire situation. The shareholders are losing patience. The board is demanding drastic change. I crossed my arms, meeting his gaze. And you think I would help? After you took everything from me? James clenched his fists, regret clear in his eyes. I know I have no right to ask this of you, but I also know that you're the only one who can save Pierce Technologies. You built a company from nothing. You understand technology. You understand the market. And I believe you can restore this company to its former glory. I stared at him, searching for any sign that this was just another manipulation. But I saw nothing but sincerity. Still, I wasn't the naive daughter I had been 3 years ago. Why should I? I tilted my head. I have my own company. Phoenix is thriving. I don't need Pierce Technologies. James gave a small nod. You're right. But you also know that if Pierce continues to collapse, it will be swallowed by a larger corporation. Everything your mother built, all that she stood for, will disappear. I bit my lip. He knew my weakness. My mother had dedicated her life to Pierce Technologies, and I knew she wouldn't have wanted it to fall into the hands of those who didn't value the principles she had protected. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. So, you expect me to put Phoenix on hold to save Pierce? James shook his head. No. I want you to lead both. I frowned. What do you mean? James met my eyes, his voice slow but firm. Merge Pierce Technologies and Phoenix Security Solutions. Create something stronger than ever before. I stiffened. A merger? That would mean I wouldn't just be running a company, I'd be leading an empire. For a moment I simply looked at my father, unable to find the right words. I knew that if I accepted, I would become one of the most powerful figures in the entire cybersecurity industry. But I also knew that I couldn't accept this as a way to simply come home. I needed complete control. I reached out, took the envelope he had handed me, and opened it. Inside was a detailed proposal. A merger plan. But one detail made me smirk coldly. You still plan to keep your position as chairman of the board? James nodded. Nominally, I need to remain in place to maintain stability for the shareholders. I let out a short laugh. No. If I do this, I won't let you stand in my way. He hesitated. What do you want? I placed the envelope back on the table, my gaze sharp and unwavering. I'll accept the merger, but only on one condition. I will be the CEO of the newly formed corporation. I will run everything. You can stay in the company, but you will have no authority over any of my decisions. James couldn't hide his surprise. You want full control. I gave a faint smile. I spent 3 years proving that I could do better than you. If you truly believe in me like you claim, You won't hesitate. My father was silent for a long time. I could see the internal battle in his eyes. He had once held absolute power, but now, he was being forced to choose between his pride and the only chance to save his company. Finally, he exhaled deeply. All right. The full leadership will be yours. I was almost shocked at how quickly he agreed, but I didn't let my emotions show. I extended my hand. Then we have a deal. James looked at my hand for a second before finally reaching out to shake it. We shook hands, but I knew this was not a handshake between father and daughter. It was between two leaders. And I had won. Pierce Phoenix Technologies was born after a 4-hour-long board meeting. I walked into that conference room as the CEO of the newly merged company, no longer the girl who had been thrown out of her home 3 years ago. The senior executives of Pierce Technologies looked at me with a mixture of surprise, hesitation, and, most importantly, respect. As I stood before the board, presenting my restructuring plan on the screen, no one dared to object. Pierce Technologies had once been a giant, but it had become a sinking ship. And Phoenix? We were the fire rising from the ashes. This wasn't just a merger, it was a complete transformation. 3 months after taking over, I stepped into my mother's old office, the heart of Pierce Technologies. When Sarah came into the picture, she had ordered everything that belonged to my mother to be removed, replacing it with cold, modern furniture. But I had recovered every single piece she had thrown away. My mother's photos, her awards, even the mahogany desk she had cherished. I had the office restored to its former state, and when I walked in again, I could almost feel her presence, smiling, watching over me from afar. James stood by the door, silently watching as I ran my hand over my mother's old swivel chair. She would be so proud, he said softly. I didn't turn around, but I knew he meant it. The relationship between my father and me couldn't be repaired overnight. But I could see that he was trying. We started having Sunday dinners together. At first, the conversations were stiff, revolving only around the company and business strategies. But slowly, other topics emerged. Memories of my mother, stories from when our family was still whole. One night, during dinner, James set down his utensils, looking at me for a long time before speaking. I will never deserve forgiveness, Savannah. But I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I didn't respond right away. I had held on to resentment for years. But now, standing in the position of a leader, I understood that regret could destroy a person, even more than betrayal ever could. I don't know if I can ever completely forget the past, I admitted. But I'm willing to try. James gave a small nod, and for the first time in a long while, I saw him smile. Late one night, while organizing my office, I found a small wooden box in my mother's drawer. Inside was an old leather-bound journal, the one she had used to document her journey in building the company. I opened the first page. Under the soft glow of my desk lamp, her familiar handwriting appeared before me. Savannah, if you're reading this, it means you've found your own path. Success is not about proving others wrong. Success is about building something meaningful, a legacy you can be proud of. I blinked, my eyes stinging slightly. For 3 years, I had fought to prove my father wrong, to make him regret abandoning me. But as I sat there, now the CEO of a company stronger than ever, I realized my mother had been right. I hadn't succeeded because I wanted to defeat someone. I had succeeded because I believed in myself. 6 months later, I stood in the grand lobby of Pierce Phoenix Technologies, where the new logo shone brightly against the glass wall. Marcus walked up beside me, arms crossed, grinning. We did it. I nodded, my fingers lightly brushing against the sapphire pendant my mother had left me. This is just the beginning. Because I hadn't just revived a company. I had built a legacy. The story of Savannah Carter is not just about rising from abandonment to becoming a powerful CEO. It is a testament to perseverance, independence, and self-belief. In real life, we sometimes face betrayal from those closest to us, are underestimated, or encounter challenges that seem impossible to overcome. But instead of letting these setbacks break us, we can use them as fuel to create our own value and rise stronger. True success doesn't come from revenge. It comes from building something meaningful and worth being proud of. What are your thoughts on family, betrayal, and the journey to independence? Have you ever faced a similar situation? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt, real-life stories about family and resilience.